live. Good morning, welcome to Morning Outlook. This is Kim speaking on Monday the 4th of July. So happy Independence Day to all those American followers. For the rest of us, happy Independence Day. Right, let's have a look at the impact of the news that might impact the trading today. Well, of course, I've already hit on the US bank holiday, Independence Day. That will see the stock market and bond markets closing or being kept closed, which generally results in even a quieter London session. European session will probably be quite down on volume. We've seen it more and more lately, whether we've got US bank holidays, that the volumes are even lighter than previously. Even though the biggest volumes still transfer across in the London markets, it just means that there's less transferring across in the London markets. Anyway, so that certainly was softening things up. I was looking on the calendar, my other calendar here, and there are a number of European ECB speakers here coming through the day. Now, I'm not too sure what they're speaking at because I haven't got that detail, but what I have got is the fact that they're speaking, and that runs right the way through the afternoon here. So there is the risk, of course, that it might say something that hasn't already been said over the last few weeks at CFOMC, or a couple of weeks, week or so. But we'll see. I say FOMC, ECB even, but we'll see if anything else comes out of that. Some slightly positive news when we get down to Australia is the Australian building approvals came in strongly above expectation there by quite some way, but and well, there was some other positive data kicking through there. Right, let's get on and look at the technicals then. We're starting off with the currencies and the euro dollar. Well, Friday saw this triple bottom come into play. It's not quite gone as low. There's slightly rising higher lows fractionally, but the market certainly looks soft here. Question today, well, question every day is which way today. We do have a weekly pivot above, which could always be a draw, so haven't discounted the idea of a little bit of upside, but I'm still looking at this and thinking, with the lower highs, lower lows that are coming through this market, I'd quite like it if it starts post 8 o'clock breaking through the pivot, looking towards maybe being a bit less ambitious than the S1, but who knows, it might go down there, but at least to that sort of 103.90 area if it does start breaking down. So there's a possibility on the euro. The pound, don't forget these markets can change on a dime. They turn on a dime on in the mornings, so you've got to be a bit careful when we look through these. It's a case of continuing to look through them, as I always warn. Don't just go from what we see pre 8 o'clock. They're quite fickle pre 8 o'clock. Anyway, the pound, well, Friday saw the sell-off. It was a good bounce in the end of the day. We saw this across a number of the markets. They bounced back up towards the sort of close of play. Pound's in a similar price action to the euro there. Again, it's got a weekly pivot and that's just above. I'm really looking to see if we get sort of some reaction. It's at the moment marginally more bullish, and I say marginally because it's only because it's had a couple of green up bars here, but it has got the potential to run into that weekly pivot. It's the reaction off of that, and maybe it hasn't yet broken its touched its daily pivot. Might still come back for that. If it starts pushing through that point, well, I'm really wanting to be on the bearish side of these markets, some of these markets, so it'll be a sit and wait for me. Dollar yen, got to keep focused on where the overall direction of the market. Sometimes it's too easy just to get caught by the short time frames. Dollar yen, well, seeing a bit more of a little bit of a move here. Now the question really is, can it break through this core group nest of moving averages. There's the 21.50 and 34 all sitting around its weekly pivot. A break of that area becomes much more bullish, and I would expect a move back to the upside, towards the upside. That's where the bigger trend is. Shorter term, it's well, look, it might just catch that weekly pivot and roll back down again. It was seeing the money flowing in there. There was very much a risk off last week, and the yen was benefiting quite largely from that. Aussie dollar. So the Aussie dollar got a bit of a kick in its stride this morning, but if you look at Friday, it broke the prior lows there. If we come down to the weeklies, and it was as weak as it's been since 2020. Lower highs coming through there. It really does look soft, and I'm sort of still in several minds, and this is what makes it a bit complex, of whether this was a first wave, was all these 5 waves was the first wave, that's the second wave, and we're in a third wave in terms of Elliott wave analysis. So we'll look at that and just keep an eye on it. But generally, the best time you'll understand Elliott wave analysis is when it's done, when it's finished, and even then it's sometimes hard to draw. Anyway, in my normal book of analysis, it's confirmed a lower high here, so it is looking softer, the lower highs, lower lows through the 4-hourly time frame. We have just put in the shorter time frames a slightly higher low, so it's going the other way for a moment, and we're heading back towards its weekly pivot. Again, it's so bearish, although, well, the sentiment last week was a little bit more bullish towards it, but it is so bearish at the moment. I'll probably have to hold fire until I've done that analysis later this morning, but it's really, for me, a preference. My preference is on the shorter side at this stage. Now it might change when I see what the big money's doing. Canadian dollar, okay, so Canadian dollar, after a pitch up on Friday, it sold, it's re-strengthened, and it ended up looking quite nice. It broke its the trend line that was drawn on there previously, but it's, well, I say looking quite nice. It's only because my preference on this overall is really to the downside. It's a bit of a mixed old bag. It's got the monthly pivot sitting below, which could be a decent draw. It's putting lower highs in here. We'll see how it develops. It's still, on the bigger picture though, you've got to be a bit careful here. It's still effectively got higher lows running through, so a bit of a mixed bag. From the bigger time frame, it broke and gave us a lower high, which was a sign of some weakness of the move, and it had rolled over further. So you can see the lower highs sitting in there, but short term, well, I don't know. Intermediate term, it was giving us those higher lows in this bit of the patching, but so there's a bit of a conflict with it. Shorter term, I'm looking and thinking, well, maybe it's got more downside potential. Right, sorry, I'm having a debate with myself now. That will do for that for now. Let's have a quick look at the gold market. So gold on Friday rolled it back over, took out the low there, a bit like the Aussie dollar really. Sold off there, got a decent bounce as the day went on. To me, it's got lower highs, lower lows. It still looks bearish. However, having just broken that prior low, it'll be interesting to see if we get buyers coming back into it, especially on a quieter day like today, when not all of the market's in play. So that's gold. Personally, I'm still bearish on it, but it can really whip big directions. Oil, well, we've seen a bit of a Friday bounce then. It was really looking like it was going to roll back a little bit more. It's obviously very questionable. Lots of comments coming in. So people even quoting $380 oil, or 280, I can't remember. Anyway, it was a lot. Much more expensive oil. And anyway, potential. Yeah, it's a bit like Bitcoin being $100,000, isn't it? It could do. It's not doing it at the moment though, and there again, it could be $10,000 or less. When I'm talking about Bitcoin, that is. Oil, well, I'm not suggesting it's going to be $10 again. It's a while since it's been minus $37, but people soon forget that. But I'm not expecting it to come anywhere near that. But sitting closer to $100 may be where it settles more and is more acceptable. But as it's sitting at the moment, well, it's a bit of a mess. It looks like it could be pushing back up again. It's got the monthly pivot above, which could be just a draw it needs, and looks quite like reasonable potential for that. However, don't forget, futures markets will be closed this afternoon, so Western Texas will be very light. Right, on that note, let's move through to other markets. Just going to switch software now, and let's have a look at what those lovely cryptos have been doing over the weekend, he says sarcastically. So I've got a weekly view. Let's change that to a daily view. And well, no real surprises. Every time there's a bit of a attempt of any sort of rally, it seems to be sold off intraday. It's still looking very, very weak on the Bitcoin front. On the crypto front as a whole, most of these markets, you've got Monday and Sunday, Saturday and Sunday positive on Ethereum here, but it's just you'll get these retail people out there that are trying to push it because they're already in it. They don't want to see it coming down here. They're not necessarily adding in. The volumes are very, very light on the upside. In fact, we're seeing selling coming in quite strongly to the those buy moves, as the bigger traders are largely getting out. Anyway, it's most of these looking very, very soft at the moment. I don't know why I'm going through them all. It's a similar story right the way through there. Okay, and finally the indices. CSI 300, so marginally up through the Asian session there. It is consolidating around the highs a bit more now, so I wouldn't be too shocked if it gets a bit more of a move. What would be nice, if as it is a more bullish of the markets, it's a pullback towards its pivot, and then of course bounce, but we'll see. Nikkei's well, it's up on its close, still looking very bearish in the bigger picture, and I'm only really looking at bigger picture here. I'm not looking at intraday trading on these markets, mainly because they're nearly closed or they are closed. The Nifty 50, again, well, a bit of consolidation, sort of sitting there. It's been nearly a week around these levels. Okay, it's dropped a little bit, and I think again with the lower highs, lower lows, it looks bearish to me. Talking of bearish, S&Ps, again, no difference here. We see these everyone beating the drums for more bullishness and more buying. This is it. It's finished. Yeah, every time they do, did it back here. Yep, it got a bit of a push up there. Every time they do, it sells off a little bit. There will, I'm sure, become a time when there's a sort of a fair price in terms of interest rates are priced in and everything else, and the traders will take bigger traders will take a bit of a view and start maybe buying back in a little bit more, and we will see a bounce. But until it really shows its hand, I remain bearish on these equity markets. Aside of the CSI 300, of course, which is doing the opposite. Lower highs, lower lows through the Nasdaq here. Nasdaq really taken a beating over the last couple of weeks, and the CAC there. Looking at the European markets here, bounced on Friday. See, it's tempting to do something here. It's still down on its day. I know it's got a green bar there, but it's still down on the day at the moment. It might pull back into something a bit more positive. But just here with the DAX as well, I can be only bearish on them in the bigger scale of things. Any sort of retracements really for me would be an opportunity to look down the time frames, like into the 4 hourly here. Look, it's hit its weekly pivot, he says, and we could get a bit more reaction off of that. And then the owl is still the weekly pivot there. I need to come down to the 15 minutes to get the daily. Okay, it's done the opposite off the daily. It's bounced off its daily, so it's got the daily one side, the weekly the other. On these markets, it's had a decent bounce off there. Oh, well, if it does rally through, there you go. There's a third one. 13014. Let's come back. 13014. It's a bit further up here, isn't it? I'm just looking to see where it would actually be. Anyway, it's largely for me looking softer, and my preference would be to be selling rather than buying. And on that lovely happy note, have a good day if you're celebrating independence. If you're not, well, I will catch you tomorrow. Have a good day anyway. Expect it to be quieter. Have a good one. Bye. Right, there we go. That's